After failing to drag House Democrats along with him on trade on Friday, the president spent the weekend on the phone. Here's what White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest said yesterday.
There have been a number of conversations over the weekend and already today about the legislative path forward. The president and the rest of us here at the White House continue to be confident that there is strong bipartisan support for this approach, and we just have to figure out how to untangle the legislative snafu in the House.
Think about the derivation of the word snafu. It actually describes the situation more accurately than I think Josh Earnest would like to describe it. Okay, Chief Washington Correspondent Peter Cook joins us from Washington. Peter, when I hear the word bipartisan, should I hear the word the Democrats aren't there?
Brendan, if the Democrats were there, if the president had made any inroads with his own party, we would be having a vote today to move his trade agenda forward. And yet the reality is we are not having that vote. Instead, Republicans, House Republican leaders, after talking to the White House, and Speaker Boehner spoke to the president yesterday afternoon, they've decided to basically extend the time period here, give themselves a new deadline of the end of the month to try and wrap things up here. And that's going to give them, they hope, time for the president to work on fellow Democrats, to get them on board his trade agenda, and perhaps get a few more Republicans in the fold as well. But it's not a good sign. If it's not on its deathbed right now, certainly it's getting some important resuscitation. This is a trade agenda that's very much in trouble.
Peter, translate the language coming from the White House right now. They say this is all just procedural. It's a legislative snafu.
Well, what they're saying is that there is bipartisan support in both chambers for moving fast-track trade authority forward, and we've seen that in the votes. We've had a successful vote in the Senate. We actually had a successful vote in the House. So on paper, the reality is it is a legislative process that's in the way, but Nancy Pelosi and those people who are opposed to what's happened so far with this bill know they have the upper hand right now. They have the leverage. Right. They can stand in the way, and the reality is they are, despite the pleas from their president.
Yeah, but Peter, the bottom line is Nancy Pelosi does not speak to Jeff Immelt. Our Charlie Rose spoke to Mr. Immelt, and I'm sorry, it's about the elites of the world, a guy like Jeff Immelt, great guy out of Dartmouth, Mr. Math guy, but the bottom line is that's not who's upset about this. Can this president speak to the Americans that don't associate with Mr. Immelt?
Well, he's been trying to, and he hasn't had a whole lot of success in terms of swaying people, although the public opinion polls on trade have changed in the last couple of weeks and months and improved. But that hasn't translated to rank-and-file Democrats who actually have to go out and vote for this. And the best reflection of that, Tom, is what we heard over the weekend and even yesterday from Hillary Clinton. Her words of skepticism about this deal, her words of support for Nancy Pelosi, that tells you where the heart and soul of the Democratic Party is at this particular moment in time, and it's not with the president.
Peter, we actually have Frank Keating with us on the desk here, former governor of Oklahoma. When we talk about the cultural conversation around trade, what is it that you hear from your former constituents in Oklahoma?
Well, the problem is, Brendan, there's such a dichotomy between the left and the right on this issue, free trade, anti-free trade. A lot of people say all these trade deals, NAFTA and the like, reduced American jobs. I mean, just visit West Virginia, the chair producing and Virginia, furniture producing areas of the country. There aren't any jobs left. So they look at that and say that's terrible. Then others say, no, all these trade deals have really increased employment and income for Americans. That has to be explained by the president. It has not been explained. The volatility, if you will, in the conversation is such that it's going to be awfully difficult to have a resolution because nobody believes the other side.
Yeah, this is the problem, which is that economists will tell you that this nets out positive. But if it nets out positive without you, you have a hard time understanding this story. Peter, in D.C., real quick, we got about 30 seconds. What is it that the Democrats are holding out for?
Well, they'd like to see a highway bill move. They'd like to see, first of all, structural improvements to the actual fast-track trade legislation, more requirements in there for labor standards, for environmental standards. They'd like to beef it up. But if you do that, Brennan, of course, then you risk the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The negotiations already underway, and that's the balancing act the president and his administration have to pull off.
All right, Peter Cook, our chief Washington correspondent in D.C. The trade bill is your grease, and I thank you for staying on top of it.